Hello, welcome back to Turn the Page for 8B. So if you remember for 8A, we had to cut it short because it was getting very long. So we split this up, so I had to do the outro, Lola. I had to do the outro for 8A and obviously have to do the intro for 8B. So welcome to Turn the Page podcast. You can follow us on all the socials. Like, comment and subscribe. Today we'll be going through Florence Knapp's debut book, The Names, and just a trigger warning, just to mention that this does touch on topics of domestic violence, coercive control and murder. So if this isn't for you, feel free to click off now and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you. Let's get into it. So we left off with, just a preamble, we left off with the bear arc. We've done that bit now, so remember we split it up into each individual character's arc rather than in chronological order. So now we're going through Julian's arc, and then next week's episode will be Gordon Jr.'s arc. So yeah.
Plot points continued.
All right, now we are on Julian. So it is back to 1987, and this is where we have the arc for the name that Cora wanted, Cora, aka mum. So after registering her son's name as Julian, Cora feels fearless. She possesses this newfound confidence. She feels aware of her body's energy, because remember she was a dancer, so she starts to feel elated, and she can feel her limbs. It's almost like she feels renewed and rejuvenated. At the same time, she's also quite mindful that Maia, who seems really worried about how her dad will react. So to the point where Cora has to almost calm her down by saying that he may be a little cross, but he will get over it. Maia is worried that it is because of what she said about everyone having their own name. So Cora explains that Maia was her inspiration, not the cause, and Julian was a name that she was thinking about for ages. They even make a little joke, and she said, "Can you imagine him being a Gordon?" And they laugh, and this breaks the tension for Maia, who then suggests that it would be a good idea for them to prep Gordon's favorite dish, which is lasagna, for dinner. She does this despite Maia not liking it. So you could tell at this point that Maia is tiptoeing around her dad, and she can read the mood and placate. So we get to the house. So Julian is on the table in his bouncer as they prep for dinner. Maia makes some paper decorations of stars and moons to decorate her father's place at the table because of the name Skyfather. And she's bouncing Julian and the bouncer. And you can see the comparison here where Cora feels really rejuvenated and strengthened at this point. I think almost like a false sense of, I don't want to call it a false sense of strength, but it feels like a false sense of strength, because at this point she's like, Maia can be there, Julian can be there. Whereas before in Bear's arc, she hid all of them away because she was aware of what Gordon was like. So she's got him on the table and they're having a good old time. Maia even calls Julian Jules at this point, and this kind of makes Cora smile because she's like, oh, I didn't even think about his name being shortened. And then Gordon comes home. So he comes home, and I think he sees Julian on the bouncer on the table, and he automatically is just don't be silly, Cora. You know what can happen if he falls off of the bouncer off the table. Don't be stupid or something like that. And it kind of sets the tone of all this happy times we had. Let's zip it. Stop now. So he puts Jules in the bouncer on the floor, and like I said, this sets the tone, and Cora preps for dinner. She sets out the lasagna, and during dinner, good old Gordon's talking about the practice and all this other stuff, and then he turns to her and says, "Oh, did you register the birth?" And she says yes. Very gently, she says, "I thought it would be a good idea to call our baby Julian as a tribute to Gordon, and called because his name means Skyfather." Because she says the tribute bit, and you could tell Gordon's like, what did you just say? And this is when Maia, who's there at the point, points out the stars and the moons that she's put on his table seeing, and she says it's to celebrate the meaning. It means Skyfather. So at this point, Gordon tells Maia to run a bath. Lord have mercy. And when she is gone, so I think even Maia is just like, oh God, I know what's going to happen. So she
Yeah.
goes off. Yeah, I was just like, oh. So she goes off to go upstairs, and when she is gone upstairs, he pushes Cora's face into the lasagna. And to flesh this out a bit more, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if this is now or maybe it's later we find out that Maya actually does come back. Or is this in the Gordon arc?
This is, that's a different
It's a
scene.
different arc.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I was going to say, I was like, oh,
I know what you're thinking about. Yeah.
That was hard. But yeah, so he pushes Cora's face into lasagna. And at this point, Cora vows that this is going to be the last time he'll behave this way. And she resolves at this point to leave her husband. Moving on to 1994. Thoughts?
So, yeah, I agreed that this name gave her more confidence. And I thought it was interesting because so far the name changes has affected everyone else. Well, I guess. But which gives the son a different nature and nurture. So is it really the name, or is it the fact that everyone else's life changes so much that the name, so this is when, so Julian is the second chapter of, so this is basically a second chapter because the first chapter was a prologue. So this is the second chapter, basically. So this is when I'm starting to think, okay, is it, because we're still thinking, is the name going to dictate who his character is, or blah, 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 or the trajectory of the story? So I'm starting to think, but it's more, everyone else's life changes so much. Like Maia is so different in this arc than she is in the Bear one. So you get to see a completely different Maia in this one. So when he does that scene where he pushes her head into the lasagna, although the Bear arc was a little bit more dramatic, this one actually gave her a silent resolve to leave. So we start to think, okay, this is going to go the same way as the Bear arc. She's going to leave, and then we'll see Maia's going to be a little bit more traumatized, blah, blah, blah. So again,
do you think this is because he pushes her face into lasagna, and then he says like, oh, this isn't over, or something like that, and he then says then he gets up to leave, and he's like, now eat. And she looks down at Julian, because obviously he was on the floor, and she looks into his eyes, and she's just like, you know, Julian means Skyfather, and hopefully you'll be a better person than that man upstairs. Do you think that kind of gave her that resolve because he was there in comparison to being hidden away?
For sure.
Then I guess that gave her resolve as well, didn't it?
Oh yeah, because she needs to protect him, because he's hidden somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, I think in either one, that's why I thought it was quite interesting. She got empowered in both, which is why I tried to describe her as empowered in both, but it's just a little bit, the trajectory is a little bit different.
And I guess even like you said with Maia, she's a bit more fleshed out in this chapter for Julian, but I guess even for Bear, you can tell that she was a bit concerned about how he was going to behave as well, because when she was like when
she told him she was gay, is that she told Gordon. She came out to Gordon.
No, because I was thinking about when she was younger, because you know how she never calls her mum mama, and so probably because of how strict everything is, so she's always been like that. But then she was so happy because it feels like in Bear she's really childlike and like, oh my god,
they've got nicknames for each other and stuff. Yeah,
like I'm so happy and stuff. Whereas in this, for Julie, she's like, are you sure you want to do that, Mum? Are you sure? Are you okay? Is this gonna be all right? And I was just like, oh gosh. But yeah, so that kind of sets the tone for how this goes. So it's 1994. So we start off, we meet Julian, who is, at this point, we're kind of getting a bit of a feeding in into what's happened in the last 7 years. So we are in Ireland, and Julian is talking to somebody called Eileen, who is a neighbor of theirs, and they are staying with Cora's mother, or their grandmother. And you find out that Julian and Maia, when they go to bed at night, you have Cora's grandmother, Shiva. I keep forgetting how to say her name. Shiva has a glass of wine every night. They notice that she does this because I think he's like going through like a beads tin, and he like reminisces that it looks like the alcohol that his grandmother drinks. We find that they had to move to Ireland because when Julian was a toddler, Gordon killed Cora when she was attempting to leave them. So Shiva is a widow, and she at one point was romantically involved with somebody called Cian when they were younger, Cian Brennan. But this was, and he's a jeweler, and this was before Cora's passing. But when everything kicked off, she's just like, look, I've got to take care of these 2 kids. I need to, become the person that's there for their support, because Maia's also going to therapy because of everything. I think she's also wetting the bed every night. So she's like, it's not a great time at the moment. So she says to Cian, like, look, I don't have the time for this right now. So she puts that relationship on hold, and she decides she's going to devote herself to the responsibility of caring for her traumatized grandchildren. So going back to Maia and what I said, despite her attending the counselling, she is wet in the bed every night. She's ashamed also that her brother doesn't suffer the same problem, because she's like, we were there at the same time. Like, why aren't you going through it? But obviously she was older, so she dealt with it for much longer than obviously Julian, and she remembers more.
And also,
So
she's
Maia,
16, wetting the beds. So
when you
she's
say
also
it like that,
ashamed.
because I
Why
didn't
isn't
think of
her
their ages.
7-year-old as just a 7-year-old wetting the beds compared to? So that's
It's
why I took
true.
it as more than envious. That I think she understood why he didn't wet the bed because of trauma,
Yeah,
but she thought,
valid.
you're actually a kid and I'm 16.
Valid. Now, when you say it like that, it's because I don't know why. I didn't think of the years. Like, yeah, she's 16 years old. Yeah, fair point. Maia has ballet lessons as a way to connect with her deceased mother, because remember, her mum was a dancer. And Julian's or Jules's favorite pastime is making bobbin spangles for his grandmother's neighbor Eileen, like I said before, who is a lace maker. So that is 1994.
So
Something else happened.
yeah, bobbin, just in case you don't know, it's like a spin thing for the lace thing. So you'll see he's quite handy with things, and then also the way he learned about his grandmother drinking was because he was going in the trinkets and stuff. So it'll make sense later on to his success. So at this point, I'm like, rah. So yeah, when the scene starts, you're like, okay, what's going on? Because by this point, you've jumped 7 years, but you're just like, okay, so what's happening? Where are we at? And you're like, rah, Cora is dead. When we left her, she had a silent resolve to leave this man. She wasn't fighting him. She had a silent resolve. Nope. We just learned
she had just looked
dead.
into Jules's eyes, and she was like, I'm not going to do this again.
And we don't know how she died or what's going on. We just know she's dead. So we're like, right, okay. And then this is when I start to appreciate the undercurrent theme. So the prologue is actually, like, normally, the prologue is like some whimsical poetic thing, and then like he'll start to make sense at the very end of the book. But the prologue actually carries the book through. So that is the thing that ties them all together. It's the starting nodes, or in decision maths, but it's the starting points. So this is when I was like, okay, we're jumping right for 7 years, but you're learning about each characters, and this is when I was like, you take them as facts, and then you'll be able to like make sense of the story and piece things together. So it became quite interesting. Like, I think we learned the ballet thing in another arc, and then obviously we're missing the bits that we learned in the Gordon arc as well. So by this point, we've learned quite a bit about all the other characters, and you just have to assume that they're facts. So everything starts to make a lot more sense. So when Maia's in therapy here, we know she went to therapy in the Bear arc, but in the Bear arc, it seems a little bit more helpful. Here we're learning she's still having physical effects, like the bedwetting, and like I already broke it down, like, oh, she's 16 years old, bedwetting, that's a bit mad. So it's like, okay, it looks like so far the bear arc is winning.
And another thing in this arc is we meet Shiva, and she's a whole character in
rather
her
than
own right, isn't it? Just a side person. In Bears, you don't really see her much.
In the Bear one, she does turn up, remember, straight after
she does turn up, but
she stays with them for a bit, but it's more like
out.
They just mention it, like she stayed with them for a bit, and then by the time we meet them, Mary and the daughter are the support system rather than the grandmother, but she was there.
Yeah, because she passes, and we find we hear, I think she passes in Bear's arc later on, I guess later on down the line, but she does pass, but she goes back to Ireland and they stay in England. Alrighty, so moving on to 2001. So we get back to Shiva, who at this point decides to reconnect with Kian because she's concerned about Julian, who she is aware is really sensitive, but she also understands that he's quite creative. And for her, she's like, it seems that he experiences life in grayscale. So she is aware that Kian is a jewelry maker. So she's hoping that he can help with maybe he can be maybe a father figure to him and also help him get his creative outlet out. So Kian decides to teach Julian the art of silversmithing, which ignites a passion for the craft in Julian, and Kian soon becomes an integral part of the family. And this is when I was like, this is great. Yay. Then we move on to Maia. Maia at this point is 23.
Sorry. So remember when we said in the Bear arc, Kian, we didn't know him in the Bear arc, but we learned about him through the Julian arc.
Yeah, and that's why when you meet him later on in the Bear arc, when I think because Bear calls him to make a ring for Lily, you're like,
he exists in this arc too, thank God.
And that's a good thing. That's what I really liked, is that she did keep, like, in every arc, there is a Kian. Is it Gordon? Is there a Kian and Gordon? I think there is, but you don't really hear much about them. There is. I think there is. But you know what? Sorry, guys. So we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So at this point, we now move on to Maia, who, bless her, she's going through it. So she's 23 years old. She's a homebody. She works in a sandwich bar. And you could tell she, at this point, is still going through the after effects of A, what her dad was like, and also B, the trauma of losing her mum. So she tells Kian that, because Kian has now become more of an integral part of their life, he picks, I think there's like a snowstorm or something, really bad weather, and he's like, I'll pick up Maia from work. So he goes to get her, and they're in the car driving down, and this is when you kind of see their relationship building as well, where Kian becomes an integral part of the family. And she's like, that when a customer gave her an English coin, it brought back fond memories of her mum, whom she still misses, which is quite interesting because when she thinks of England, she thinks of, good times with her mum. This is in comparison to later on when we talk to Julian, who hates England because of what England represents for him.
Which makes sense, isn't it? Because obviously she has memories with her mum. He doesn't.
Yeah, he just has this harsh thing that happened.
We think he doesn't. Because we learn, I guess, in this arc what happened a little bit.
So Maia then tells Kian about the time that Cora took them to a woman's refuge, but eventually returned to their father. So this is where we find out that she had tried to leave on a few occasions. And Maia guiltily reveals her relief that they went home because she was afraid in the hostel when they were there. So, and I've heard this dynamic because I work in sexual health and I don't have much correspondence with domestic violence victims and stuff, but we do have training and stuff about it. And they sometimes do say that sometimes being in the hostel or being in a women's refuge is actually quite difficult, especially for them and their children, because obviously you're taking them out of a situation where you would think, oh yes, we're safe now. But being in that environment with different people as well, that can also feel quite unsafe. So I was just like, this is a very valid point. And I think this is also the chapter where you find out that I don't know if is it here where you find out the grandmother, Shiva, is also going on women's, what's the radio show? Is this where she's talking about...
Was it in this arc? I thought this was in another arc. But yeah, I remember.
Was this later on?
I think she becomes empowered, but it is in an arc where she's with Kian, so it must be this one. But yeah, she does start going on
Woman's Hour.
Yeah.
She's on Woman's Hour talking about
I think it's
what the domestic violence or what happened with Cora. But yeah, sorry, I kind of just interjected there because it just came to my mind. So yeah, Maia tells Kian about the time that Cora took them to a women's refuge, but they eventually returned back to their father, and she guiltily reveals her relief that they went back home because she was afraid in the hostels. on the night he killed Cora, Gordon had learned that his wife was planning to leave again, and so he locked himself in a room with her. And Maya describes how she covered Julian's ears to protect him from the terrible sounds. But she, because obviously she's protecting his ears, she can hear everything. And I was just like, oh, I swear that got me deep in my heart. Kian then decides that he's going to make Maya a necklace from a British pound coin. So I think this is like the next day. He then comes with this necklace and he gives it to her. Jules is there. He can't understand why Maya is so pleased with the gift because, like we said, he actually hates everything associated with England. So he's like, why do you want an English pound coin? But this is also where you see, so remember with Bear, they had this really tight, close relationship where they were like thick as thieves. In this timeline, they're not that close, especially in the beginning, because they, like we said, they're 9 years apart, and Maya has lived a different life to Julian. So you can see the differences here. 2001 over 2008.
Yeah, this was when you start to appreciate. So initially you're just looking at them as characters. Then I start to look at them like as 3 different characters. Now I start to look at them as 9 different characters. Like just give them a little remix on each one just so that it can make sense, because Maya is completely different here. She's a recluse, which is also why Julian struggles to have a closer relationship with her, but they still are okay on surface. But I think I don't know if it's here, but there's a scene where they try to have a deep conversation, but Maya's so awkward, it doesn't really work.
Yeah. Like he comes up to her bedroom. I think it's the next bit when he's talking about the girl that he meets, Orla, and she is really awkward about things because she's not made much friends and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's it was that. This is when it starts to get quite clever, but then also, so the fact that Maya, so I just said she's a recluse, recluse, and all of that stuff. But the fact that she gave all of that, we learned all of that detail about the mum and what happens from her talking to Kian, who's a man, and she's scared of men. So I was like, oh my God, she's not scared of Kian. I was like, oh, I love that. So that's when I was like, okay, he must be a good guy, and he was. So that was lovely. And then the stuff about the women's shelter, and I was like, because it was like, okay, I get that they're here. The mum's dead. We just assumed that maybe it happened in the same manner as Vihan. That it was that same night. After the lasagna, he just took it up a notch and boom, boom, boom. But no, it dragged out.
That's why I was like, what?
Yeah. And a similar thing happens with Gordon's Cora later on. You think it happens quick, but it drags out. But yeah, drags. So, I thought this is when it starts to I'm getting more into the game of us shuffling and remixing. Do you remember dub plate drama? When we got to choose the next episode and stuff like that, and that's how it would span out. So that's what I was trying to figure out. What's the directions that it can go in based on the names and stuff. So
it does keep you on your toes. I think one other thing, going back to the domestic violence aspect of it, I think one good thing, and I don't know if she was doing this on purpose, because you always hear in the media and everywhere that it takes 7 tries for a woman to leave a domestic violence situation, and it's just like, well, no, because it doesn't appear to be that way at all during each timeline. It's like you've got this scenario in the Bear, it was like this shit kicks off and she wasn't even trying to leave at that point. It was just he did a madness and killed somebody, and that's how she got out of the situation. This time she had tried to leave. I don't think it says 7, but she had tried to leave a couple of times, and then she does try to leave and she's killed.
I think it was 4.
And thank you. I was going to say it definitely wasn't 7. And then we get to the Gordon's arc where Lardgard.
I think that was about 7 times.
Yeah, so it was it? I don't know.
But she actually leaves.
She does. And you're just like,
well, Gordon's a different beast. That's when we learned the real Gordon boy. With his doctor,
oh gosh.
And that's what they say as well. So you're right, actually, with the domestic violence. Another thing, just to jump ahead into the future, another thing is they do say that, victims say that even though to others that the physical sounds the most torturous, is the mental. that messes them up. And I want to get into something with the Gordon arc, because I think he was doing something from the very, very start, because she's always saying she was tired from the very start.
Yep. That man is a sick man. You know, there was where like an abuser that is also a medical doctor that's in a community. I was just,
and then we get to see. Oh, we're jumping ahead again, but you get to see them like Gordon and Cora. Because remember when they got on that trip?
Yes, as a dynamic, isn't it?
And that was mad.
Just,
that was mad. I thought it couldn't
really
get worse.
Struggled.
And it got worse.
I really struggled. One thing I must say is I'm very pleased that she broke it up, because if she had done an arc where it was just like, okay, so can you imagine if she did like part 1, part 2, part 3, and it was like Bear, Julian, Gordon.
You know what it would have been like? It would have been like those books
too much
back in the day, like Ugly, or those. I don't know why it was trendy, but those books about the mum abusing their children. And it was, and we were reading them in school. And we were reading, and like every time I bring this up, everyone remembers. Like, one of these books. It's so messed up. We were reading this.
I've still got it on my bookshelf. God Don't Like Ugly by Mary Monroe.
That wasn't one of those biographies. I'm talking about those ones where the mum was like burning the kid's arms on the stove. Do you remember these books?
Pretty sure that was in God Don't Like Ugly.
God Don't Like Ugly was a messed up book, but it wasn't a true story, was it? These books were supposed to be true stories. But God Don't Like Ugly was a messed up book. I remember a scene with someone trying to give themselves an
abortion.
Yeah, with a hanger. Yeah.
Lord, one day I need to reread it as an adult, because that was wild to be reading as a child. I think she was in a bathroom.
Yeah, because I was actually talking about this. Okay, so with the ones in school, like it was because everyone was reading them for some reason. But those ones, like God Don't Like Ugly,
Barbara, if you're listening to this, it's because of you. I'm pretty sure she was the one that got us into this.
Do you remember Leslie by Omar Tyree?
Yeah.
I tried to reread that as an adult. That was like our favorite book. We would read that book so many times, and I think it stole it from the library. Yeah, we were in the library, and in when we were younger, if you were reading the youth section, that was appropriate. But if you were looking for Black authors, everything was mixed together. So I was reading stuff that I should not have been reading.
Yes,
and
you're right.
And we didn't know, because the covers look like just like
the pictures.
Yeah,
they were art. They were drawings.
They were anime.
You're right. It's because we were looking for Black authors. And then you're just like, oh, I found one, and then let me finish the next one of this book and stuff like that. Yeah, valid. We're moving on to 2008. So we're back with Julian, who has rented a unit in an old factory. It's kind of like a co-working kind of space where you've got different artists that can have studios in this converted factory, and he lives a more solitary life.
It's those warehouses in like Old Street or Shoreditch.
Yes, that's what I was thinking as well. That's what I had in my mind. And he lives a solitary life. He's kind of lost touch with his school friends, whose camaraderie was built on their dislike of Gaelic games. So he was more of like on the outs. He wasn't a popular kid. Like I think he was popular as a bear. But here he's more of like a lone wolf kind of vibe. You kind of get this vibe of like, it's always raining in Julian's world. That's a kind of vibe.
He's a thinker. Bear,
it's sunshine, forests and animals and bees.
He's a doer.
Yes. And so we figure out that Julian's aversion to sports sprang up from his fear of hurting someone. So he's of the opinion that his blood, that the abuse is in his blood. So I think they play in, I think it's like rugby or some game, and he gets shouted at by the teacher because he doesn't want to tackle someone. And this is also interesting because of his fear of growing up to be like his dad. I think even Bear had this fear.
All of them did, even Gordon.
Yeah, because, Gordon lived with him for much longer, but Julian and Bear obviously didn't live with him for that long. So it's interesting that they still have that fear. Julian resists Kian's suggestion that because obviously Julian is older, Julian is resisting Kian's suggestion that he should export his jewelry to England. We discussed this earlier on. Julian is really of the opinion of like England is the devil. He's like, nah, I'm not sending my stuff over there. It's going to stay in Ireland because England equals Gordon. So he's building up his business, and he slowly starts to get close to a fellow artist called Orla, who introduces Julian to the other artisans who work in the factory. This opens him up, and he starts to feel like he's part of a like-minded community. Although he is attracted to Orla, he does lack the courage to take action, which is an issue for Orla later on in their marriage. One day, Julian and Orla are stranded in the old factory when the street floods during a heavy rainstorm. So Orla takes off her wet jeans, because I think actually what happens is Julian is actually in there. Everybody had headed off, so he was still there when it was chucking it down. And then he hears something and turns around, and Orla had come back because her car basically was going to be swept away by the flood. So she makes it back to the old factory, which is a bit elevated. I think that's why he was
planning to stay there.
Yeah, staying overnight. I think he was going to like eat like some snacks from their canteen or something. So she comes in and takes off her wet jeans and puts on a radiator, and she sits with Julian while she's talking to him. And this is when she's like, oh, will you make me a necklace? He starts to make her a necklace, and sensing Orla's romantic expectations, Julian does panic, because he's like, I don't know if I can do this. Oh no, am I the right person? Am I going to hurt her? Like, he's going through this turmoil, and he then makes a decision that he's going to hand her jeans, because, you know, she's basically sat there like just a top and panties, and he decides to hand her jeans from the radiator, observing that they are now dry enough to wear. So although humiliated, Orla takes her jeans and retreats to her studio. And you're thinking, Julia, mate, Jules. So we get on to our 30-year-old Maia. And this is quite interesting. They do like to highlight how old she is in all of the bits in comparison to Bear.
Oh, no, I put that in for you.
Oh, no, but even in the book.
Oh, okay.
They highlight they do highlight her age quite a bit. You don't really hear how old Julian or Bear are. Like, you have to be like, oh, like, how old is Maia? She's 9, so Bear's a baby, stuff like that, which is quite interesting. But yeah, so 30-year-old Maia suddenly feels this sense of awareness. I think she's watching TV or something, and she just has this awareness that, look, I'm wasting my life. I need to do something. I think this is also because
though. Sorry, because that's generally how it happens when you're in a slump like that. It's just one day you just start like, let me just snap back into it.
Yeah, let's get on.
Yeah,
because I think it's because what happened was when Julian starts to get in with a like-minded community, I think also because they were probably, even though they weren't close, they probably were in a sense of companionship of the fact that, you know, they're not happy people. But then Julian then starts to open up. He's found this community. He's quite active. He's doing stuff with his hands. He's got something to do. And I think, like Lola says, he tries to have a deep conversation with Maia about, I think he's trying to have a conversation about Orla, because he liked Orla like when he first met her, but she's really like, oh, I don't know, because she's very like, oh,
what can she tell him?
Awkward. Yeah, like, and at that point, I think even then she's just like, I can't believe my younger brother is making strides and he's getting to know these people. So,
and also I felt like she was frustrated that she couldn't answer him. I felt like she wanted to in that scene. It wasn't that she was being a weirdo. She literally wanted to, but she just didn't have the communication skills.
Yeah.
Which when you're by yourself so long, it's hard.
Fair. And I think also this is where, you know, we said that she does, the author does this jarring thing, I don't know, jarring sounds mean, but it kind of takes you out of the characters.
No, but it's jarring. It's literally jarring. Is it another real world?
I don't know, yeah. Like, it drags you, but what we do have is that she's watching the news with her, Kian and Shiva, and I think it's a referendum about gay marriage, and this kind of makes her feel like
she's got
I could live a life. And then it's because she sees the way her grandmom
and in
and
this
I guess you
arc,
can call her
I don't
grandfather
think,
act.
yeah, she doesn't really understand if she's gay yet. She's still at that
No.
point where she's not even at that stage yet. So
No.
yeah, so
She's
she's
just
like,
oh,
when she sees that, it makes her happy though.
yeah. She's happy that they have frights, and she's also happy to see their reaction to it. So she's also
Yes.
like, oh, because I think the grand Kian says like, oh, finally, or something like that. Even when they do these vox pops where they're talking to somebody on the street in the news spiel, and somebody says like, oh, he says a thing, but then even the mum, Shiva's like, oh, like what's our business or something like that. And that does make her happy. So this kind of all these things together gives her this new lease of life, and she decides to train as a homeopath. I can't remember what zhuzhes her to do this. I think she was like walking through. She saw a bush. I can't remember. Something happens, but she becomes a homeopath. So, sorry, as a medic, me and homeopathy, we're a bit like, what's that? But yeah, I'm not going to put my thoughts on that here. So, thoughts. Moving on to 2015.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, in this one, I thought, Julian was so lonely, and then he met Orla in the studio, and he was pushed to branch out, or in, I guess so, because they were in that place. But I thought maybe, yeah, I thought that was good, because it wasn't like, so you think, oh, this is gonna mess up, but she keeps trying. Orla was the right person for him, and he found his tribe.
Because she's pushing.
Yeah, so it works. And then Maia is a bit lost here, like so much more depressed, and like so much more, like so different to the other Maias that you see her in, that it's like raw. It takes, like, you really have to be like, just snap out of it. We know what you could be. So yeah, when she
because I guess even here we're comparing her to Gordon Maia. And she's doing bits in Gordon Maia.
Bits. So it's like, come on. So yeah, and then Julian, it's like, when he did that self-sabotage with Orla, you can understand it. Like the good people, and Julian is supposed to be kind-hearted and whatever the mum wanted him to be, but the good people wouldn't want to take something that's so traumatic or something like baggage like that into a relationship, isn't it? They'll want to heal first, and he's clearly still got a lot of attachment to a situation he had no real involvement or control over. So yeah, you could see his considerations in like we said, he's a thinker, like, so he was really overthinking things. But it was nice that Maia got some backbone at the end, and we know that with Julian he did get his community. So yeah, I thought this was starting to be like, okay,
you're like, finally they're both getting there. Because I was a bit worried that Julian was going to move on with life, and Maia was just going to keep being where she was. Okay, I was going to say where she was. She's been through some shit, man. Alrighty, so it's 2015, and we have Julian buying snacks for Orla's pregnancy cravings. So we've had some progress. Julian and Orla are now together, and she's having a bubba. Julian sees a newspaper headline about the Paris terrorist attacks, and this is where we were talking about the whole linkage up and everything, because, you know, Bear had the Paris in his timeline. We've got it here. But yes, so he sees in a newspaper headline about the Paris terrorist attacks, and when he returns home, the couple discuss possible names for the baby. Orla suggests Cora as a girl's name to commemorate Julian's mother. However, Julian thinks of his mother as mum, so he doesn't want to now have the name Cora, because he associates Cora with the way his father used to say the name whenever he was telling his mum off or abusing his mum. Julian and Orla had become a couple after he revealed that his father had killed his mother. So I believe this happened one night when he kind of explained why he was pushing her away. So what happened? Something happened. I think so. Obviously, they had that whole. It was where they had the storm. He basically piled her off, and they kind of went their separate ways. Orla started to date somebody else, and that didn't work out. And I think they were back in the warehouse place overnight again, because these people don't want to go home. And then this is how they had this conversation. That's right, isn't it? Because when you just like something happened.
Yeah, it's like it was like she kind of like I feel like okay, I feel like she was kind of like, what are we doing? Like it was very like, let's stop messing around. Because I thought when we got back to it, I feel like I thought this was dead, and then all of a sudden no, they're together. It happened, and you could kind of see it maybe happening, but I can't remember. But I do remember the way you were saying it now. I remember there was something happening, and I think she stayed behind again.
She stayed behind, and that's when it all kind of came out. But yeah, anyways, so you have Julian has now explained to her that his dad killed his mum, and he explains that he can't begin a relationship without admitting that he has half the genes of someone that's capable of murder. So we still have that same trope of the murderer's son. He believes that if his dad could do it, he must carry something that could do the same. So we have that ongoing thing going on with Julian. Orla then brings him round, makes it clear to him that he's a different person from his dad, and they start a relationship. Julian also still refuses to send jewelry to England. However, he does undertake a private commission for this Englishman named David, and the engagement ring is for David's girlfriend, Lily. Okay, so in this timeline, Julian and Lily never get together. So Lily's out there with David in England. So I was just like,
I was like, of all the names, she could have chose someone else. It has to be the same Lily.
It did tickle me. It's got to be Lily, because why else?
Yeah.
So in this timeline, Lily is David's girlfriend, and David's going to propose to her, and Lily is an English teacher in this timeline. So we move on to Maia. So Maia is enjoying working as a homeopath, which this involves often listening to patients' problems as well as treating their medical issues. Maia also still has a therapist that she's going to. And in one of her sessions, this is where she comes out and she says, I think I'm gay. And I think Lola said this earlier when she was talking about the characters. She also highlights the fact that she's unsure if her attraction to women stems from the fear of men she learned as a child, or whether she is actually just attracted to women. So that was quite an interesting dichotomy for Maia to be going through in realizing who she is attracted to. We also find out at this point that I think I said it in the last chapter, but it's actually, I think it's here when this is where we find out that gay marriage is legalized, and Maia feels more optimistic about her future. So it feels like things are aligning a bit better for Maia. Things are aligning also for Julian. Everybody seems to be doing okay. So that's the end of 2015.
When we find out Orla is pregnant, I was like, this is so weird. I was picturing her pregnant in that scene with Charlotte on Vihan's death anniversary, because I think so. In this,
Vihan's not a thing in this one. In Julian's link,
sorry, I was picturing Lily pregnant in that scene, which was before. So this will make sense if you read it in order. But basically, I was picturing Lily pregnant, and then bam, Orla's pregnant. So this is So basically,
this 2015.
Yeah, we're in
Julian.
2015. So, and the France thing's just happened. So Lily's pregnant. Lily's just said to Bear, "Oh, I want this, I want that." But then it's Vihan's death anniversary, and Bear starts asking again. And then this is when Lily's in the kitchen with Maia, with Charlotte. Sorry, because she's with Charlotte. You're right. She was with Maia's girlfriend, Charlotte. And then that's when she finds out. And it was so weird. I was picturing Lily pregnant in that scene for some reason, but she's obviously not. But then we do find out that they have a daughter called Pearl in 2022. So maybe for some reason, I pictured Lily pregnant in that scene. And then when we get to the junior...
She wouldn't have been there, because I think Pearl was 4.
Oh, yeah, you're right. But for some reason, I pictured Lily pregnant in that scene with Charlotte. And then, bam, when we get to the next chapter, so if you're reading it in the actual book format, the next chapter is Julian's bit. we're there with Ola being pregnant. I was like, oh, maybe, I don't know. It's could just sense some baby's coming. I don't know. But yeah, I thought this bit was quite short. It was just kind of tying up loose ends, I think, for all of them. This 2015 arc, I think it was kind of just, even all of them. I think this one was quite short, but then it's because I guess the next chapter quite a lot happens for them.
Yeah, it kicks off, but gosh, 2022 was a difficult time for them.
Mm.
2022. So we have Julian and Orla. They have now had 2 daughters. We've got Aoife and Neve. The family experienced financial hardship during the pandemic because retail outlets closed and exhibitions are cancelled. And bearing in mind, both of them are artists. They do crafts. I can't remember what crafts Orla does. I'm pretty sure it's metalwork as well. But Julian is really struggling because he also refuses, because remember, he has that refusal to send any of his products to England. So everything is confined to Ireland at the moment. So this starts to become a rising issue between him and Orla, who is at this point more and more critical of her husband's passivity, because she's like, you're very strict about this England thing, but about other things you're really passive. You don't make decisions about I think she probably feels that she's having to lead him along in the relationship. So she seems to have a lot of resentment towards him, which builds up during COVID. And it's quite interesting, the dynamics between Julian's situation during COVID in comparison to Bear's situation during COVID, because according to Lily, they seem to have a really good time in their little bubble. So we then see that there's an instance where this whole passivity issue rises. And you can see that they're really struggling with money. I think like he wants to buy coffee or something, and she's kind of like, why are you spending money on coffee? We don't have money for coffee. Or the kids are losing their shit at each other, and he's a bit like, like leave him to it. And she feels that she has to be the disciplinarian, and she's looking at him like, why can't you step in to do something about this? And I was thinking maybe he feels like he doesn't want to become angry at any stage, because he is, like she says, he is quite like mellow and like one mood. Like there's no excitement or anger. It's just mellow. So maybe that's where this all comes from. So during the second lockdown, because there's multiple guys, Orla snaps, and at this point she's like, I can't do this anymore. She takes the children to go stay with her parents, and this is done indefinitely. Kian, who has been basically a father figure to Julian and Maia, he contacts Julian and says, look, you need to do something. You need to start opening up to the shops in England. How about you send a consignment of your jewelry to the Liberty store in London? Julian, he thinks about it for a while, and then he decides, okay, fine, he will do this, because he also does want his family back. He can see where he's gone wrong, so he does decide he wants to do this. He also works on the house because they don't have a lot of money, and I believe that the house was quite old, and there's a situation where he talks about the fact that like there was damp in the house. I think they said that like there was one point where they woke up and there was like slugs in the kitchen or some shit. I was like, what the fuck did this? Like, I was like, this is a wild. Artist. Yeah, so they've been able to get by with just being like, oh, it's fine. And he kind of uses this moment as a new lease of life. He's like, okay, do you know what? I'm going to sort out this house. So he decides to work on the house, and he also sorts out the garden while his family is away. So one day there's the smell of a fir tree prompts a really vivid memory of his mum. And Maia confirms that Cora used to send them behind the garden's fir trees because when they were younger, when Gordon used to come home. So this is one of those memories that little Julian, because he obviously was only around Gordon for I think 3 to 4 years of life, has, and which was triggered by the smell of the fir tree whilst he's working out in the garden. So Maia tells him Cora used to send them to hide behind the fir trees. They would give them like pre-prepared snacks, and she would always announce that it was picnic time, go outside, go like be there. And Maia reveals that their father also wanted to call Julian Gordon, but Cora chose the name of Julian. So I guess he didn't know this either, but I guess why would he know? You know, she died before she can explain it, and they didn't have that best of a relationship. From this point, Maia begins to share further memories of their childhood each time she visits Julian. So it becomes this really nice bond of Julian and Maia becoming closer as they start to talk about more and more about their parents. It's quite a good development stage for Julian, I felt, in comparison to the other bits, because he's, like we said, he's been very mellow, very passive about everything, and now he's finally learned about his past. And I don't know, maybe he didn't ask before, but nobody seemed to talk about it. But now Maya's finally being like, no, here's what used to happen. And he learning more about the parents, he realizes he's nothing like his father. And this is where, at this point, I was thinking maybe his passivity and his lack of emotions about the whole thing is because of his fear of, like, I don't want to get too angry because I don't want to be like my dad. That's when I thought it here. So Maya describes the night of their mother's death. And Julian cries and then sleeps for 2 days. Julian works on a heart-shaped piece of jewelry as he recalls the reasons he fell in love with Orla. And one evening while he's working in the studio, Orla texts him to say she's at their house. And then you have this, like, I don't know, old school romance movie things where he's like he runs all the way home, determined not to waste a moment of time without his wife and his daughters. Obviously they were separated. She was allowing him to call, and they were like, he would talk to the kids, but he always knew that it didn't feel right. He wanted them back home. So then he sees her, and whilst he's running, he narrowly avoids, and this is where Lola was talking about the wasp nest, he narrowly avoids 2 workers carrying a wasp nest, which I completely forgot about this. So now that I've seen it in the script, I'm like, yes, I remember this, like, full circle moment. But then again, when did we see this about Bear? Had we read Bear's bit first and then...
Yeah.
Gosh, maybe I was too traumatized. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I was too traumatized. So yeah, Julian tells Orla, he runs past the wasp nest, runs home, runs and sees her. She's stood in the kitchen, and obviously she's looking at the house to be like, rah, like, he's done all of this whilst I've been gone. And then he sees her and he's like, Orla. And in the book, he's very Irish. So like, I wish I could do an Irish accent for you. And the thing is, I work with a nurse who's Irish, Carolyn, bless her. I always take the piss because she'll be like, film. She's in a film, like stuff like that. And I keep repeating it back to her. And she's like, oh, crying out loud, Kim. Like, why? Okay, if you're listening, Karen, I apologize. Where was I? So, yes. So he runs back home. He sees her in the kitchen. He tells her how much he loves her. And she agrees to come back home. We go back to Maia, and we find out that Maia has begun a serious relationship with somebody called Meg, a former homeopathy client they meet at some sort of retreat or conference or something, and they start talking and they develop into this relationship. Meanwhile, Shiva, who has been very active this whole time, bless her, she's been taking care of the kids. Her and Kian had developed this really good relationship. It was almost like it was her mum and dad with the kids. I think she was trying to keep active every day. She would go for walks every day because she was just like, I need to stay active for the kids. And we find that she then passes from a heart attack, and we actually find out that she had a hole in her heart. They think that she probably knew that she had this hole in her heart. And it's actually a miracle that she lived to the age of 88. So that is the end of Julian. So interestingly enough, reading it or like going through it, Julian went through some shit, but his life...
Yeah, I think Julian's arc was for him the most positive. For him.
Yeah, for him as a person. But yeah, I don't know about for everybody. And wasn't it so sad for Kian when Shiva died? I was so upset for him. It was like, this is the love of my life.
I was like, oh, okay. She died in Bear's one because I was like, Shiva's dead. Laugh out loud. Again, poor woman.
Laugh out loud?
No, not laugh out loud, but you get it. But like, lol. Like, again, how many times are we going to kill this poor woman off? Sorry, Missy. And then the arc with Julian and Orla, that was really. So basically, I know you said he was very monotone, he was very calm, but I felt he was. There was a lot of angst, and that was what was pissing Orla off. So she was just kind of like snap out of it, just get over this thing, sail to London. We are like living off of crumbs here. Like you're actually wallowing in your self-pity. Yeah.
Yes.
And like we have kids here, like you said, snap out of it, be the dads. Like you can't just be their friend because you don't want to be this aggressor, because obviously she knows. So she knows that he's trying to hold back because he doesn't want to be this bad guy. But it's like you're to the point of, I think she was going to hurt herself or something was going to happen. That's why she snapped.
It was the kids were losing their shit. She was in the kitchen I think she was cooking, and it was kind of like the kids were losing their shit, and like they were screaming, like, and then he kind of just stood there and like, I think he said to her, he's like, "You gonna go get that order?" I did it. I think I did the Irish accent. I think I did it.
Wasn't too bad.
Hopefully it picked up. And she just looked at him like, "Me? Like, why can't you be the bad person for once? Why does it always have to be me being the bad person?" And I was just like, in the beginning, I was a bit like, "Order, calm down. You know how he is." But I was just like, if I was in her situation, I think I would be fed up as well. It's like, yes, we've talked about it. Let's move on now. Like, we're struggling. We're struggling. She said there were slugs. There were slugs.
Okay, he lost Orla in the beginning, but then that did motivate him to start finding himself. And like Kim said, so he was always trying to get his family back, but he didn't really know how to go back. So he just started looking around the house and looking around the slugs and stuff. And he's like, this is really ridiculous. And so he started doing up the house, like just basically just doing, and I saw that as a sign of like him trying to fix little patches of himself and stuff like that. He started building up a relationship with his sister Maia, there
was a lot of building, wasn't it?
Yeah, so he was trying to do, like, because clearly he knew that the fault was within himself, so he was trying to do all the hard work and stuff. So I thought that was good. And then at the end, it paid off. So I thought that was nice. Although in between his nan dies, and that's actually what brings her home, because that's where she just turns up.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually what happened, because it was kind of like, do you need somebody? And because like Kian, Maia and Julian have that really nice moment where they're kind of just together, like just catching up on good times and stuff. And then she's just like, I think she says to him like, "Do you want me to be there?" He's like, "Oh no, it'll be fine." But then she still comes anyways. But yeah, it's like, oh, at least she wants to fight for it as well.
Yeah, that's what I saw that.
No, didn't give up on her. Alrighty, we are going on to Deep Sigh, Gordon.
Alrighty, so we will end it there. Thank you everyone for listening, and catch us on the last arc, which is Deep Sigh Gordon. So yeah, Gordon's a tough one, a very tough one, so trigger warning, but I hope you can listen to round it all off, and it is a very good book. So like, comment and subscribe, and I shall see you in a couple of days, because I'm a little late with this one because disappointment. Never mind. We still got 3 more. It's nothing.